Okay, I'm making this video because I want to teach people a few things about potatoes they may not know. First, potatoes, all of them, even the Irish potato, come from Peru. Not Peru, excuse me. They come from the Andes Mountains, which is a bunch of little countries, mountains that are in South America. Okay, there's many varieties of potatoes. Here's a purple kind. They're very small. They don't get much bigger than a peanut. Now, I've got these, and I've grown these last year. Started with just 3, and I ended up with all these. So they're really productive. And these are little Purple Majesty potatoes, and they get much larger than this. And there's another purple one called Adirondack Blue, and I've already planted those in there. And they get much larger, the same size as a red Pontiac. Some of them are only blue on the outside, some of them are blue inside and out. Some of them are deeper purple than others. And they claim that the blue contains anthocyanins that blueberries and other blue fruits and vegetables have in them. So if that's true, well, they're really good for you. They taste good, and I like them. Potatoes are my favorite vegetable, and they store very, very well in the house. That keeps them from sprouting. And you can go ahead and plant your potatoes in Zone 7 underground in the fall, and they'll sleep underground as long as they don't get frozen, which deep under the soil, around 6 inches deep, they don't freeze. So I plant them sometimes. I let them overwinter. They'll be coming up all over my garden from years gone by, and I'll be moving them into this row here. Anyway, the way I plant them, really simple. I take the mulch and I move it off to the side, and I make a ditch, just like this ditch. Hey, don't eat that stick, it's too big. I make a ditch, and in the ditch, I dig an even deeper hole, like this, and I drop the potato in the bottom, and I fill it with really good natural compost that comes from my mulch. And I don't have a compost pile. I just throw weeds up like this from the garden and let them mulch wherever they go, you know. And I just throw my manure all over the place from my horses. And any manure is good. Just throw it on the surface. And when it rains, it leaches on down in there, and earthworms take it, and redworms get in there, and they pull it into the ground. Anyway, so that's how I plant my potatoes. When they come up, I don't worry about hilling the potatoes. I put mulch around them because I don't want them to dry out. Potatoes need to stay as wet as they can without being soggy. They don't like dry weather. And potatoes cannot take 32 degrees frost or 0 Celsius. If they get that, they'll die. They're very sensitive to freezing, but they love cool weather very much. And the way you know when it's time to harvest a potato, very, very simple. As soon as the potato starts to die, and then you can dig them up and start eating them. They're as big as they're going to get. And I just leave mine in the ground and dig them up when I want them. After the potato dies, the plant dies, I just dig up the potatoes when I want. And if I don't dig them all up, they sleep over winter here in Zone 7, and they come back. Even though we get down to 5 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit, they still survive by sleeping under the ground below the frost layer. And I'm not worried about solanine, which everyone's so scared of. They're like, oh man, if your potato turns green, you'll get sick. You'll eat solanine, and it will hurt you. Well, I've eaten many green potatoes in my life, and I don't even peel my potatoes. I eat them with the peelings on. So I've eaten green peeling potatoes, green potatoes with the peelings on. I've never had any trouble with them. And the truth about it, potatoes are nightshade plants, and so are tomatoes. And people have often eaten fried green tomatoes, and so have I. I eat fried green tomatoes all the time. And you eat green peppers. Well, there's your solanine. Do you mind eating green bell peppers? Green tomatoes? No problem. So why would there be any difference in a green potato? Anyway, I eat them like forever, and I'm healthy. Nothing wrong with me. And so anyway, dig you a ditch, put your potatoes in the bottom of the ditch, and dig them a little deeper than this ditch, drop them in to where the real soil level is. See, this is the mulch layer you're looking at here, all this nice dark stuff. And down below it, you'll see, can you see that's real soil right there? See, that's not mulch, that's real dirt. You put them right down into the real dirt area, and then you put the mulch right back on top. Just enough now this time of year. It's now February 3rd, I think, and this is when, it might be February 4th. Anyway, this is when you plant them. Many people say in Zone 7, Valentine's Day, February 14, but it doesn't really matter, because as long as they're underneath this soil and it's the temperature that it is, nice and cold but not freezing down deep there, they're going to sleep. Their roots might come out, their little sprouts might start growing, but you're not going to have any problem because they're under the ground and they're going to get a head start. Then once they come up and start tipping, it's going to be because the soil temperature's gotten pretty warm. And by that time, it's time to plant them anyway. And then you might want to, if you know there's a frost coming, just bury the tips like that. Bury them. They'll come through that, just a little. Just make sure they don't get frosted. And generally, there's not going to be too many more frosts when they come up to the surface. You might have to do it once or twice. But as I said, as I was healing them to stop them from getting green, generally the lush foliage is going to stop that. And I've not died from eating green potatoes. Anyway, there's a little bird in there eating worms. I don't have any problem with blight and stuff like that. As far as planting grocery store potatoes, I do it all the time. And what is a seed potato? A seed potato that you buy at a feed store or seed store is not different because it doesn't have sprout inhibitor on it. It's different because it was grown from actual seeds to prevent disease. Whenever you grow a potato from tuber, you run the risk of carrying a disease from the ground the tuber was grown in. But when you grow up from a seed starts out without disease. So that's important to some people. They have huge fields and they don't want their billion-dollar investment messed with. But I just have a garden, and I've been doing this in this garden for 20 years, and I have never had a blight. I have never had any kind of disease, and I have no problems. And I think the major reason is you need acidic soil for potatoes. The more acidic, the better. You do not want to put wood ashes on your potatoes or lime or anything that will calcify the soil or anything with sodium, to make it more alkaline. That's bad. You want them to be acidic. Potatoes love sulfur, they love peat moss, they love humus and organic matter. They do not like sodium, calcium, lime, any of that stuff. They can grow in limier soil, a more acidic soil than any other vegetable that I know of. And like I said, they store underground better than ever. But around right now, under the ground, the potatoes are really starting to get roots. So the ones that I've overwintered under the ground here that are going to be popping up, they're going to have a real head start, because the ground underneath there might be, I don't have a soil thermometer, I wish it did, but it's about probably, I'm going to say 58 degrees down about 6 inches deep where the potatoes are. So I'm not really sure about that, but it's warm enough for them to be growing underground with roots. And so they're really a head start. And okay, store-bought potatoes have been sprayed, they say. Well, actually, I think it's a gas that they gas them with so they won't sprout for a while they're in the store. Gas evaporates, and eventually they will sprout. I don't know of anyone who's ever had potatoes from the store that didn't sprout. So that myth about, don't plant them from the store because they're not going to grow is not true. I grow them all the time from the store. If I see that they're sprouting, you can just take that whole potato and throw it in the ground. And as far as cutting potatoes in little pieces, well, you can do that, but potatoes they're determinate, and there's two kinds of tomatoes, indeterminate and determinate. One grows continuously and just keeps on growing and growing as long as the weather permits. They'll grow for even years and keep on putting out flowers and blooms and keep on putting on tomatoes. Then there's the determinate that only gets a certain size, puts out some flowers and fruit, and quits. Well, that's what a potato is. It's determinate. It only grows a certain size and it stops growing and puts out its tubers, and then it just dies. So the potato towers and stuff are a gimmick. I've tried them, and you don't get any more production from them, because a potato tower was invented to get your money. Potatoes do not grow along the stem and keep putting out more potatoes as you bury the stem. It does not work that way. You need to know this. When you plant your potatoes, once they send out a certain kind of root that puts out potatoes, that's it. That's where they're going to be doing that. So every time you bury them deeper, it hurts them, makes them have to grow out to go to the sun and get more energy. And it can bring bugs in doing this hilling. Excessive hilling is really ridiculous. You're just causing trouble. You want your potato to come up, get just enough soil around it to make its batch of potatoes that it's going to make, and then let it get all the sun it needs and sprawl out and cover the ground with its own foliage. And as far as cutting them up, I never got around to that. When you cut up a potato, you're not going to get an increase in yield. Let's say there's 6 eyes on potato, so you went on ahead and cut it up into 3 pieces. Now you've got 2 eyes each. Well, your problem is those 2 eyes, like I said, they're going to grow to a certain size of a plant, and they're going to just die and put out that many potatoes. So really, you're not maximizing yield by cutting that potato. You're simply increasing the area that you're going to be having to dig for potatoes. If you put that whole 6-eyed one in there, you're going to get, no kidding, you're going to get about 12 potatoes in that one spot. But if you put one with 2 eyes, you're going to get maybe 2, 3 potatoes, maybe even just 1. It's really the way it is. So I don't cut my potatoes anymore. Another thing, it's really important, if you do cut your potatoes, make sure they dry. You got to get them to scab over. It takes time. If they don't dry out and callus over, as soon as you put them in the ground, they're just going to rot under there. They can't dry out under the soil. So you might as well just planted eyes, and yeah, that'll work, but you're going to get some small potatoes. And see, I do not use any chemicals or synthetic fertilizers. I just let mine grow off what my soil's got, and I do add horse manure and stuff like that from my farm, but I know that a lot of people can literally plant an eye and then just accumulate a bunch of chemicals they have to purchase and throw them in the ground around their plants, and then your soil's dead, your earthworms are dead, and your soil doesn't have this kind of tilth. This is the reward for not using chemicals and using actual just base leaves and stuff. You get real humus, you get really good soil, and it's living soil. It's got microbes in it, which in my opinion, and it's an opinion, is healthier than a sterile soil that's full of salts and other chemical compounds. And in synthetic fertilizer, they're allowed to put stuff in there that they don't tell you about. The inert ingredients can get rid of waste. They don't have to tell you what's in the inert ingredients. And there are a lot of places trying to get rid of some stuff, and that's legal to get rid of it in the US in the fertilizers. You can research that. I've heard it on the news, so I know. Anyway, store-bought potatoes grow. I don't cut my potatoes because I'm afraid they're going to rot and I'm not going to get any more production. I used to cut them, and I never had any more protection doing that than when I just plant them in the ground. And so potato towers don't work. They do not add any more production. Watch people that have used tires and stacked them up. They will like take a tire, lay down some soil, put the potato piece in there, and then they will wait till it grows up and they'll add another tire and add some more soil. Well, after all these tires are stacked up at the end of the season, when the potato dies back, they'll see a long spindly stem throughout all those tires, and at the very bottom there's finally that batch of potatoes. Just check out the videos. I'm telling you the real truth, because I've done this and I know it's the facts. It doesn't work. You plant your potatoes, they make one batch of potatoes, and that's it. So you don't want to keep burying them. Solonine's not deadly. I've eaten it all the time. I've eaten plenty of green tomatoes fried, and I've eaten plenty of unpeeled green potatoes. Okay, that's just another review. My turkeys have come all the way out here, and that is not good because somebody has just started dozing over here and they got a hunting blind, and they may shoot my turkeys, especially my female turkey that looks like a wild turkey, which were almost extinct here because they've been hunting them to extinction. They did it before, and we brought them back in the 1970s, and now we're hunting them too much and no one's seeing them anymore, but they still are allowed to hunt as much as usual. And not many people are getting any turkeys when they kill. They go out to exterminate them. They're not bringing any home because they're just not there. And what they need to do is make it to where they can't hunt them right now so they can come back, because they really have a hard time making it and surviving. Anyway, they're tame. They like people. That's why they followed me all the way out here from the house. And I'm telling you, this is no kidding, man. We're looking at probably a quarter mile they've followed me out here. Maybe not a quarter mile, maybe a sixth of a mile. Sorry about that. Anyway, so another thing, I think that potatoes shouldn't be cut. That's true. Okay, I'll probably talk too much. This is important that you know that potatoes are not going to increase, and that seed potatoes are grown from seeds. And the tubers you buy at the feed store, they're from seeds. And that's the only way they can make them disease-free like that. And so you're not getting a potato that is any better, really. But grocery store potatoes are going to grow. So if you store potatoes underground, they will stay there all winter long if they're below the frost line, and they'll come up in the spring. When you get frost, don't forget to bury them before the frosts come. There's plenty of warning. And then don't cover them anymore. Just put mulch around them to keep them watered. And I used to have problems with potato beetles and other things when I used to hill them, and I never saw an increase. I just saw an increase in bugs, not production, because it was hard on those plants, having to get through that mulch again and again and again. I think the best thing you can do for potatoes is grow them in manure. If you could, just grow them in pure horse or cow manure, and that's it. I mean, if you can just cover this row in horse manure while they're growing until they get started, you're going to have something. I'm telling you right now. Another thing to grow that's really good, you should grow shallots. Everybody should. All they are is a little onion that multiplies like garlic. It makes little multiplications under there and splits itself up. They are extremely winter hardy. Now, they got tinged pretty bad when it got down to 5 degrees, but they did really good. They're coming right back out of it just fine. And I've got lots of varieties. You got to watch shallots because there's 2 different kinds. There's the seed kinds that you grow from seed, which I do not recommend. And then there's the kind that vegetatively propagate. And I say the bigger they are, the better. So try to get a brand that's big, like Longor or Red Sun. Those are big. And I would stay away from the little gray gazelles because I've got those. And they're here, and you can see they're not even very winter hardy. They're burned all the way to the ground, and I gotta wait for them to come back and see which ones survive the cold. They're not very productive, and they're tiny, and they don't taste any better. I don't know about these rich people. They want to eat snails, and they want to eat fish eggs, and they want to drink wine that tastes so horrible they gotta spin the glass, and they want to eat shallots that are so small they can't hardly peel them. Why not just go for a big one? And the reason I'm eating shallots is not because they taste better, but because I only have to plant them one time and forget them, and they just split up and take over, and then they're so easy to harvest. When they start to dry up, when they start to die, that's when you just pick them off the ground and then let them dry out further and replant one where you've taken that one up. And one will turn into 6 to 12 new ones, so they're really awesome. Another thing in the winter I really recommend is garlic, man.